Hi, this is Henry. We're really hoping Henry stays napping. This is the first time that I've been wearing him outside of my body for a poetry reading. This book was released just before he was born, and so I did a little bit around. I'm from BC. I did a little bit around BC and Alberta. Extremely pregnant with my toddler in tow. So the brightest thing is about fairy tales and our search for a contemporary happily ever after, and the joys and the problems with those things. So the main narrative of the book follows a contemporary speaker who is close to this person here, and also moves into the voices from devoiced princesses from fairy tales, as a way to sort of question the way that we put all of this importance on the idea of true love having to be romantic love, because there's all kinds of love that are really important. It doesn't have to be that romantic love between a person and their romantic partner. So there's, love between parents and children, or love between friends, between siblings, all different kinds of relationships. And these can be just as or more nourishing and wonderful as this idea that we have all this pressure on this romantic love. And of course, the idea of the fairy tale love is quite heteronormative and very problematic in the way that it privileges, the man pursuing the woman who needs to be rescued. And so that's one of the things that I'm looking for and examining in the book, is looking for what really is true love and questioning what we've been presented or sometimes taught is true love. And so I think that gets us sort of starting up for the book premise. There is some content here that is a little bit troubling because we're dealing with fairy tales, and fairy tales are quite troubling. People are like, oh, I wish life was more like a fairy tale. I'm like, have you read fairy tales, though? Often in fairy tales where, often the princess goes through these horrible things happen to her, and at the end she gets to marry the prince. We think, oh, so she lives happily ever after. I can't help thinking, she's got some trauma she's bringing into that marriage. So the book moves through poems that are in a voice that is very close to my own and my life, but also into voices of those of these female characters from fairy tales. I'm going to begin one that is in my own voice, but it does deal with a fairy tale, and it touches on it in the poem itself, but I just want to remind everybody of the story of Thumbelina. Hans Christian Andersen really tortured his characters, which is a whole thing for him and his autobiography too. Like he didn't have an easy time of love either. This story always troubled me. It troubled me before I became a parent, but it troubled me long before that Thumbelina is born to this woman who just wished for a child so badly that she went to a witch, and then Thumbelina goes away. And as far as we know, she never got in touch with her mom. And she went and married the king of the fairies. And so this is a poem that I wrote for my mother, who has yet to hear me perform it in public because she's always juggling one of my children for me instead. Poem for the mother of the bride. As soon as you zipped me into the off-white gown with the tiny Swarovski crystals, a dress so like and unlike all the dresses I ever imagined as a child, English lace, netted over creamy taffeta, down into the scalloped edge, the long train, the fabric's flounces, I became aware of my overactive bladder. And so I crowded into the tiny bathroom with you, and you held my gown up for me while I peed. I'm not embarrassed by my body, and you aren't either. My body is just a place I live in, as you live in yours. Although, of course, I lived in yours too. Mom, on my wedding day, I felt as I was supposed to feel, more beautiful than ever before and more loved. But it was not the narrow, focused love of a fairy tale union. When I think about the story of Thumbelina's coronation, how she meets the king of the flowers and is presented with a pair of gently curved wings from a white fly, I wonder how the story could be so wrong. It opens with a childless woman who so longs for a child that she pays a witch for a grain of barley that grows into a tight tulip bulb. With the sentimental intricacies of magic, the woman kisses the petals, and the flower gives a bang and opens. And there, on the tiny green stool in the center of the tulip, is her new daughter. There is a certain romance into the way you tell the story of my own birth, and it makes me feel protective, too, of Thumbelina's mother and her long-awaited joy. What she must have gone through when Thumbelina went missing. Oh, I know Thumbelina went through a lot, so many undesired suitors and near escapes. But why did she never send word? How could she have been so thoughtless, so ungrateful? The day she married the king, she couldn't have felt with her new wings the way I felt standing in the bridal room with you smoothing the folds of my skirts. So many of the poems that take on the voice of the fairy tale characters began with a question for me. What were they thinking? So one of the longer poems in the book is from the point of view of the third eldest sea princess. What did she think when her little sister, the little mermaid, dies for the love of a human man who doesn't love her back? That poem is 7 pages long, so I'm not going to read that one. But you should buy the book because I had to bring them all the way from BC, and I've got a lot of other things I'm carrying. And so you should take those books home with you. And instead, I'm going to read from The Giantess. This is the giantess who is married to the giant from Jack and the Beanstalk. How are we feeling on our remembrances of this plot of Jack and the Beanstalk? Pretty good? Okay. So, Giantess is a character that's completely fascinating to me. I mean, she's a walking contradiction. I don't understand. First of all, what kind of a woman could be married to? Well, he's not very nice, you guys. He's not a very nice giant, right? But then, second of all, how could she leave him? How could she betray him so easily? They've apparently been together for a long time. Jack shows up, and quick as you can, she just gives him up. And so I wanted to know what kind of a woman the giantess is. This poem has a bit of a rhyme to it, so you'll hear that as the poem goes on. The Giantess. I might be rocking to the fee-fi-fo-fum. We'll see how it goes. My kitchen smelled of the blood of Englishmen, boys come from the quiet earth below, fee-fi-fo-fum. Oxen, cattle, an entire V of geese strung out like a necklace of onks, their strangled harmonics rung out in dark notes, rivulets on the stained wooden slab. Block to chop, knife to stab. breakfasts of sausage, veal, lamb for lunch, a wide-eyed goat still bleating, a flutter in the throat before it poured out its silly life, and I called my man to our table. Whatever he caught, I was able to skin it, dress it, clean it, cook. I don't know why I could do this. Not for his grumble, the kiss he gave before stumbling out to terrorize the farmland below with his voice mean and low and his appetite for meat. I liked living in the clouds, the soft white wisps, crowds of rain waiting to fall below us, never on us. Just sunshine, the moon, all that light was mine. And he was mine. I was useful, preparing meals for him, doing housework, tending to every craving and quirk. He never brought vegetables home. No cabbage, no carrots, potatoes to wash, no cucumber, not one squash, nor green peas on vines, just furred bodies shiny with sweat and intelligence, whiny pink tongues and plaintive eyes. He stole things that lived like him. The beast of his body, limb to limb, taller than any church we might have married in. It was, I know, a life of sin. Still, the size of the hole he left. The clouds parted for his shoulder. He thundered down that green stalk, a boulder shifted free by a loose pebble, that hapless jack. Fee, fi, fo, fum. My giant fell to the earth he came from. The iron smell of blood remained on my kitchen table, and the knife I used to prepare the rest of my life meals for one. Green beans, quiet, a solitary, simple diet. I'm mostly just teasing. I think he's great. I mean, of course he's great. He's perfect. So I'm going to go move back into the contemporary speaker voice now. And this one also borrows from fairy tale called Fitcher's Bird. So I knew quite a bit about fairy tales before I began writing this book. It was one of the reasons why I came to the material. But I got to learn a lot as I was researching. And one of the things that I was not surprised, a little bit disappointed, a little bit pleased to learn was just how many women really were involved in the creation of the stories that we love, where men have taken credit for them. So among the very best fairy tales, of course, are those of the Grimm brothers, and there's all these myths about how they came to be collected. But we know now that a lot of the stories that they came to them from basically the women who lived near them, their neighbors. And among the ones that are most well known, like Rapunzel and I think the version of Cinderella, a whole bunch of them, were actually contributed by the girl next door. Her name was Dorchen Wilde, and she actually later in life became the wife of the younger of the Grimm brothers. And one of the stories that she contributed is called Fitcher's Bird. And this is the murderer husband story that most of you guys will be familiar with because of Bluebeard, Perrault's French version. But this is very, very close to that tale type. So it's Fitcher's Bird. There is a German version of Bluebeard in which the bride discovers the room of disembodied limbs and white faces, and she recognizes them as her lost sisters. Unlike Perrault's heroine, who opened the door to her forbidden room and dropped that little key in blood, and whose curiosity is betrayed by its stain, and who is only saved by the timely arrival of her brothers to rescue her from her husband's scythe. The bride in the German tale conceals her knowledge of her husband's evil and tricks him into believing her compliant, while she secretly sews her sisters back to life. At the end of the story, the bride not only lives, but she rescues the women who usually stay in that terrible locked room. I would like to have that power, to walk away from harm, but also to help mend those whose stories are so much more grim than my own. I loved a girl from high school who went missing for 2 years while I was off at university, falling in love with feminism and an intelligent man with beautiful eyebrows. She had gone away with a man much older than her who promised her a house and a marriage and babies, the happily ever after she and I had dreamed up during our sleepovers of curling irons and nail polish, and the feeling that there was something faintly dangerous about wanting sex. This man did not deliver. Nothing was as it appeared. Not the houses or the cars with lapsed payments and fraudulent leases, or his declared intention to love her gently and with grand gestures. In the fairy tale, the evil man is a sorcerer who only has to touch a beautiful girl to compel her to jump into his basket so he can carry her to his house glistening with gold and silver and a basin of blood. At first, amongst such riches, each woman must believe she has everything she could want. At first, she must be happy. I do not know for how long my friend believed in the life that older man gave her, each new city, new start, new debt, new ways of being touched and being hungry. The bride in the fairy tale smuggles her sisters out of the terrible shimmering house, and instead of preparing her husband's supper, she dips herself into a barrel of honey, cuts open a bed, and rolls in the feathers until she looks like a magnificent bird. It is impossible to recognize her. She does not need wings to walk out of that house and come back home. I do not know how she knows this, or why it is true for her and not for so many others. So folklorists have a tale type index called the Arne-Thompson Tale Index, which is a multi-volume listing that they use to identify recurring plot patterns in the narrative structures of traditional folk tales. We've touched on those a bit already this evening with the recurring of the murderer husband trope. But one of the tale types is called Folktale type 425C. You guys are already excited. The poem explains what tale type that is, but I thought you'd like to know that I'm not making this thing up. This is a short little one. You have had quite enough of the Louvre. Although you do admit to liking the statues of Cupid and Psyche, the young god's wings don't look as if they could really hold him up, but he reaches a hand towards the woman about to lift her mouth near his. They are almost kissing, transcendent with desire, and I explain to you that they are the precursors to beauty and her beast. Tale type 425C appears across cultures to express anxiety about marriage and the complexities of love. Jean-Marie Le Prince de Beaumont made the story famous when she published it in France in 1756 and emphasized gratitude instead of passion within love. The wingless beast doesn't arch his back like Cupid does. The wingless beast doesn't arch his back like Cupid does, in anticipated pleasure over his soft-breasted love. Instead, he gives thanks, gives thanks, gives thanks. Thanks for not insisting we stay any longer, you say, rubbing your sore back. I think of the long stone museum floors and the vertebrae you damaged by falling out of a second-story window when you were 7. The story has many variants. Oh, thank you. This is the day that lasts 2 days for me. I put my daughter to bed on her 2nd birthday and then got on a plane with Henry. I always say with that poem, after I finished reading it, my poor husband, he gets cast as the beast and I get to be Beauty. And when I read that at my hometown launch where my brother still lives, he said, "Sounds about right." They get along great. In fact, my husband and my brother, every single time that either one of them opens up a new jar of peanut butter, they send a video of that first satisfying scoop with the knife. It's been going on for like 3 years. Like the other night or the other morning, I woke up, my husband's like, "Daryl just sent me another peanut butter jar." Great. This is another short one. And this is, it's talking about that trope of the protective male. It's called Loyalty and Violence. When I finally told you that my first boyfriend raped me, I was worried you would be mad I hadn't told you sooner. You and Dad believed so innocently that you could keep me safe that it was difficult to tell you that you had failed. I wanted to protect you from the truth that protecting someone is impossible. I was half sick with the paradox of loving men. When you nodded and said you were glad I had waited to tell you, I was relieved and grateful. You explained, "I think I am only just now mature enough not to hop in my car and track that bastard down and hit him in the face." I know what is wrong too, but a part of me flushes with pleasure. Not because I wish pain on that first boyfriend, but because I enjoy the thought that I am worth fighting for. It is an enjoyment, it occurs to me, suitably allotted for a woman, and is a kind of violence all its own. So the book talks a lot about different kinds of love, love of siblings, love of parents, love of lovers, love of sisters, love of other women, and love of family, whatever family means. This poem is in 2 parts. It's called Family Portrait, Medieval Times, Buena Park, California. The first section of the poem is describing a family as they are about to get their picture taken. The second part is describing what the finished portrait looks like. One. At dinner, we'll have roasted chicken leg dressed up as baby dragon, and the waitress will introduce herself as our serving wench, and a choreographed jousting tournament will kick up sawdust in the castle's arena, the horses' hooves interrupting the princess singing in her stage tower. We're fairy tale too, because my father sprang for the king's royalty package. It comes with first row seating, Knights cheering banners, a behind-the-scenes DVD commemorative program, and a framed group photo, which he upgrades for us upon arrival to include costumes. The photo studio assistants with their bland name tags address me and my mother as Milady, usher us to roll racks of tasseled robes. Here's our selection for queens, someone says to Mom. You can choose your princess dress here, they say to me. No questions asked. We are who we are. Someone adjusts my beaded tiara. My mother touches her crown, radiant with gold glitter. The room with its green screen is thick with the kind of magic that gilds the memory of my fiancé and my brother, two princes choosing prop swords off a studio wall, laughing wide-mouthed like lions on a crest. Two. Mom and I are in the front of the frame. Ladies first. Beneath all the purple velvet, bronze brocade, we're still wearing jeans. I can see my fiancé's black and white striped Adidas gazelles under his princess robes. My brother, 22 and cool, determined that if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Doesn't smile for the camera, but relaxes his face as if he's come from battle. Above his blood-red cape, the t-shirt I bought him 4 Christmases ago. It's hard to believe in his dragons. The two princes' swords sparkle in pixels above us in an enchanted forest with its too good to be true waterfall and dappled fairy light. In the center, here's Dad. 6'6", mid-50s, capable of giving his grown family a holiday on an indulgent budget. A man who chose California, who chose Disneyland, who chose medieval times. When they dressed him, the studio assistants reached for the largest king's crown. But my father chose, neglected on the prop table, a clown's hat. I want to be the jester, he said. In the photo, it's the brightest thing. Thank you. If you're not all fatigued, I thought I would read from one piece of new work. It's been a long night. You guys have been a wonderful audience. Does everybody know the song Roly Poly? It's a favorite in our household right now. It gets sung a lot. This is a short poem in 2 parts that are called 2 Poems Featuring the Nursery Song Roly Poly. Part 1 is July 24th. This is for my daughter Rose, whose birthday was yesterday. I'm folding laundry. In the other room, you're singing to our new baby. Without seeing you, I can tell that he has smiled at you, because your voice changes, just so, when you smile your own smile. And now I'm here with my own smile, because I heard you smile, because you saw him smile, and our little world is full of smiles and songs and oh, so much laundry. July 25th. I'm folding blueberries into the muffin batter. Across the hall, I can hear our daughter singing softly to herself, to her moose and bunny, perhaps. The same song you sang to her new brother last night. Roly-poly, roly-poly, up, up, up. I wonder if she's dancing to her song. We never bothered with a baby monitor, so I can't check a camera for her movements inside her crib, can only guess at them because of her little voice singing into the imperfect dark of the small pink room she lives in now, when she used to, not really so very long ago, live in me, when her movements were more than guesses for me, when I could feel her small limbs bumping up into the places where I ended and she was beginning. She is even now beginning. Roly-poly, roly-poly, she sings into the evening. Up, 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 she grows. Thank you very much, and thank you to Henry, and thank you for all of you, for being such a wonderful audience. This is a long event full of wonderful work, and I came last, and it can be hard, but you guys have made it really easy. And thank you to Words Aloud and all the organizers for bringing me all the way to BC so I get to be a part of this wonderful evening. Please find me and Henry after the event if you want to say hi or have me doodle in a copy of my book so I don't have to have that in my weight on the way home. Thank you very much.